trenches. Ask a nigga what he benching. Triple digits, nigga, don't forget to mention. Whole hard in the trenches. Ask a nigga what he benching. Triple digits, nigga, don't forget to mention. Don't forget I got memories, dead stain the whole room if I let him bleed. Shit was dark, I let this little light him out.
There we go. All right. Off. Here we go. All right, man. Hey, appreciate everybody joining in. Welcome to another episode of the Trap or Die podcast. Let's get through the administrative items right quick, everybody. First and foremost, obviously, if you are watching on Twitch and you like the content or you're watching the VOD or anything like that, make sure you are following. If you are not, this is a followers only chat. We always welcome and love the conversations. Just make sure you are following and contribute to each and every single show. YouTube. You're watching on YouTube and you like the content, same thing. Give us that subscription and hit that like button on the video. Or like that goes a long way. It's simple and easy to do. And then podcast. If you are looking or listening, I always say looking for whatever reason, but if you are listening on Apple or however you listen to your podcast, make sure you give us that rate and review, man. It goes a long way. Same thing. And make sure you are subscribed if you are not. All right. So we're here. This is the Aftermath Show. Green Bay Packers and the Washington football team. Washington obviously falls to 2-5. I'm gonna check in right quick with the chat. What's going on? And Jarian, how y'all feeling? Said he don't got too much tonight. I ain't been with you live in a minute, but Odin handed the team off to me already, man. He said my team is trash, bro. I didn't realize we were 2-5 until I watched your stream from yesterday. And then Jarian mentioned. Or he's just saying, what's up, man? What's going on, y'all? This is Jamal, man. And listen, this is just a reminder. If you do appreciate the content, if you do enjoy the discussions, if you enjoy the videos, all that good stuff, man, hit that subscription button. We truly appreciate it. I truly appreciate it, man. We're just trying to grow out here, and support goes a long way. It's as simple as hitting that subscribe and that like button. Comment if you wish, man. Truly appreciate it. I ain't gonna hold you. Go ahead and get back to the show. See you later. All as well with y'all. Well, look, we got some things to talk about. Some productive conversations, but it's some tough conversations. I know people who are still all in on the team may not like it, and that's perfectly fine. They may not enjoy the conversation that we're about to have here, but it's worth discussing because I've asked around and I've had these questions in my head for a couple of weeks. I've even hinted to it on previous episodes. I've said some things. So like some of the stuff that I'm going to say isn't brand new, but we have to continue to talk about it until we get down to the bottom answer. So I understand some people. I know I'm being passive and vague right now, but I know some people kind of don't really, they aren't really ready or willing to kind of hear that there's a potential seriousness to what is not going on. Like the team, there's a potential seriousness that people do not want to address or even take into account right now, but we need to talk about it. All right, so first things first, let's get through the snap counts and the injuries, and then we can get to the coaches speak. All right, so that's the first thing we're going to get through. So Nikki Javala, like I've said the past couple of weeks, I follow her snap count thing because she does a real good job in making her notes, but also post the full snap counts for offense and defense. So she posted the snap counts this morning, and she mentioned her notes. The defense played a season low of 56 snaps. Curl, Fuller, McCain, Holcomb played 100% of the snaps. Collins played just 24 snaps in total. Collins, that would amount to 43% of the snaps. Ricky Seals-Jones played all but 6 offensive snaps the last 4 games. Gibson and McKissick, 30 and 46 snaps respectively. That's where we are for both sides of the ball. There's nothing that really sticks out on the offense. I mean, at one point, let's see if I put it in my notes. I didn't, but I mean, at one point there was a question on why Antonio Gibson had just 30 snaps, but Ron Rivera said it was game plan oriented. I don't have a reason to really question him in that sense. He did mention that they was in a lot of passing sets against the Green Bay Packers, which kind of eliminated the need for Gibson late. which is weird given that he was a receiver in college. I don't know how that works, but that's kind of where they're at with that. But the biggest story is on the defensive side of the football. So Jamin Davis played 98% of the snaps, 55, just missing one snap defensively. Same thing with Benjamin St. Juste. He played 55 as well, which is 98%. Jamin Davis, as we said, well, shoot, if you all looked at or listened to however you get this content, if you looked or listened to the film breakdown of Jamin Davis defensively, like it was last week with Logan Paulson, you kind of understood that he was playing a little bit better. And for him to play 98% of the snaps against the Green Bay Packers, against Aaron Rodgers and things like that, it's not about like whether or not he played good, because I don't have that story yet. I don't know how good he played against the Green Bay Packers. I can't tell you that right now. I may be able to tell you Thursday or maybe even tomorrow. Can't tell you that right now. But for him to play 98% of the snaps, it's kind of indicative on where he's at in terms of his role increasing, but also where the coaches think he is as a player. They trust him enough to at least take the lumps on the field versus making it seem like he's a complete liability and he can't see the snaps at all. So that's something to take into account. Another thing that I thought of as well is the Landon Collins thing. Landon again played 24 snaps, 43% of the snaps for the defense. And for me, everybody, I said this pregame, and I was gonna put it on Twitter, and I just didn't have time, but also didn't have time to really, like, if I put it out there, I didn't really have time to interact with individuals and kind of like further like be there if somebody had a disagreement. But my point was, Landon Collins playing 24 snaps is not an issue. It's not a bad thing. It's not a good thing. Like, it's neutral. It is what it is. But you all have to remember that this guy he's essentially a linebacker now, and he's transitioning into a new role, which is linebacker. He's playing there full time for the most part, with like sparingly a snap or two here at safety. But he's playing linebacker in the box, and there's a sentiment out there that Landon played a solid game. And I would like to remind people of what I said pregame. Landon Collins is in a position where he's only played linebacker 2 times in his career heading into the Green Bay game. And that was against the Saints, and that was against the Chiefs. Ladies and gentlemen, a transition to any position, especially if you played another for such a long period of time, is going to take time to get adjusting. Like, if you saw if you envision how am I going to say this? I'm about to mess it up. If you can envision him playing in the box well, if you can envision that, then you have to give him the time and allow him the time to learn the position of linebacker. It's not going to be sweet. Here's the examples that I used in my pregame. Now, again, trust me, I know Landon Collins is going to be gone at the end of this year. Well, depends on how he goes the rest of the season, but I feel like he's going to be gone at the end of this year. I also feel like he wasn't playing good. 7 games already? I don't think he was playing good for at least 5 of them. I don't think he's playing good for at least 5 of them. But you have to understand, D'Angelo Hall, what happened to D Hall 2015, he transitioned to safety to extend his playing career. He ended up playing in the league for 3 seasons as of 2015. He played 3 seasons, 2015, 16, and 17, I believe. Transitioning from cornerback to safety. Another person that we aren't taking into account, Will Blackmon. Now, Blackmon wasn't like a staple in Washington, but in 2015, he was a solid slot corner for Washington. And he ended up making a transition to safety as well. And he extended his playing career by 1 year. And the point of bringing these players up isn't that Landon is in that same boat as somebody who is just looking for a way to, now that I was about to say that out loud, it actually makes sense. Like, I think he is in a spot where he's trying to extend his career. I think the issue is he may not know it yet. I think that's where we're at with Landon Collins. I don't think Landon Collins knows that he's in a position or a point in his career where he has to kind of accept the fact that if you are to play in the box, you can earn some money, you can be a starting linebacker, and you can be a playmaker that you once were when you were an all-pro with the New York Giants. That's kind of where we are. That's kind of where we are with Landon Collins. In my opinion, I do not think that he's that player that should forever be counted as somebody who's trash. Though his resume to this point in Washington says that, I think when you're talking about a transition to linebacker and you want him to move to linebacker, it's going to take time. And that's kind of where I think the transition, if it's going to exist, you have to allow that time to happen and see where it goes. If he ends up playing like a stable, if he brings stability to the linebacker position and the limited snaps that he plays, creating plays on the edge, making plays as a blitzer, being a force in the box, we can have another conversation about Landon Collins. Ladies and gentlemen, the Packers rushed for, let me go to the game. I should have had it pulled up, y'all. Here we go. The Packers rushed 15 times, which wasn't a lot, clearly. I thought it was a little bit more than that. That's why I was pulling it up. But they rushed 15 times and had only 57 yards rushing. So that's an incredible average, under 4 yards a carry for the Washington football team. I'm not entirely too sure. Again, I'm telling you all now, I'm not entirely too sure to what degree Landon played a role in that on his 27 snaps. But at the same time, I'm just saying playing in the box primarily is going to do some things to you when you're trying to learn new principles and trying to learn how to play inside a group of people who are at least 100 pounds heavier than you. It's going to take some time, man. He's only 215. Like he ain't 290. He ain't 290. So for him, I think he's going to have to accept that part that his career is changing. His position is changing. I don't think he's going to get those looks in free agency as a linebacker. So if you want to extend your career, you kind of have to buy into what the coaches are telling you here and make that switch mentally as well and give it your all. And I think that's how you extend your career, Landon Collins, is understanding that part, because he wasn't very acceptive on Thursday's presser heading into the Green Bay Packers game, kind of fighting the notion that he's only doing this right now. So that's where we at. For me, I'm gonna catch up with the comments. Mentioned Ron not kicking that field goal in the first half, tied 7-7 was the game to me. He said, I saw 52 more than I've ever seen all season flash on that screen finally. Appointment mentioned, speaking on Landon Collins, he doesn't have to accept it because he's been playing out of position here and he's made enough money to ignore the linebacker thought, which is actually more big nickel Buffalo nickel. I understand that appointment. I think the issue here is not necessarily, and you make good points, because he also mentioned appointment that another team will let him play strong safety and use him correctly. Ultimately, dude is coming off an Achilles, what he's doing is impressive. I don't know, because we got to think. Now, I'm not sitting here saying the beat reporter's word is gold in the Bible, but they are the middle piece to the fan base when we're talking about training camps, right? And the story in training camp was that he was looking really good. He was flashing. He was playing fast. He knew what was going on. And then when the regular season came around, he wasn't looking like that. So I don't know if it's entirely a coach's thing, knowing Washington and understanding that players do have success when they leave here, because coaches try to fit square pegs into a round hole. I got it right. That's kind of where it messes up in Washington, but I honestly think this is probably the best move for him, because he's not as fast as he used to be. So I think that's kind of where we're at personally. But in terms of the big nickel and Buffalo nickel thing, I get it. Like I get it, but at the end of the day, he is in the box. Like they ain't really moving him out there. They ain't moving him outside of that thing, but. That's kind of where I just stick with linebacker, because I think that's where he's at, man. I think that's where he's at. He's just a versatile player who kind of has to step up in that sense. Who knows? I mean, again, position transitions and fixes like that aren't necessarily always a bad thing, man. It could help Landon out in ways he probably wasn't really receptive to prior to him talking to Ron. But let's go again to this Ron talking coaches speak. I'm not going to talk too much about this because I want to ask you all questions too, right? And I was going to do the good and the bad from the game. We only ain't got to take care of that. Ladies and gentlemen, everybody that's in the chat, I'm going to ask you all a couple questions. Y'all can talk about it, and obviously I'll catch up to the chat when I get some points across. But talk to me. What for Washington football team, and be honest with yourselves. Be honest with yourselves. What, and as it relates to the Washington football team, should be the expectations for this team? What are the defined expectations for this football team as it stands today? Like, we do not ignore the offseason. Do not ignore how they played the last few weeks of the season. Do not ignore anything that the coaches are saying to you. I just want you to take everything into account and tell me, what was the expectations coming into the season and where we are right now? That's the first thing. Second thing is, what is a proper rebuild? Answer whichever ones you want, or answer all the ones that you want. Like, you can answer all of them. But what is a proper rebuild? Talk to me. Let me know what that proper rebuild is too, because some things I'm going to discuss with you. I'm gonna bring some things up, and I'm saying that we're gonna go from there. So, what is a rebuild? What are and what should be the expectations of the Washington football team? And then we're gonna go from there. All right. So, yes, for this year, what should have been the expectations? All right. So here we go. I'm gonna catch up on these coaches, on the coaches speak, and then we're gonna get to that conversation, right? So, Ron Rivera spoke yesterday and he spoke today, and he mentioned a few things. And speaking of Landon Collins and the Buffalo nickel and all those things, he said that he loved his role. You saw him run through the line a couple of times, making plays behind the line of scrimmage. You saw his ability to get outside and turn the ball back inside. You saw him in pursuit. He did a nice job in his coverage drops. He believes that the more he works at it, the more comfortable he gets at it. And he thought that he was productive. So that's where they want to see him. There was another issue where he mentioned that he was trying to get through the flow of games. As this is a weird response, but I always feel this way looking at the PR that Washington puts out. Anyway, they asked Ron on why they went for it multiple times on fourth down, and Ron mentioned that he was trying to get the flow of the game as we go through it, trying to get points, listening to the analytics, trying to make decisions. I just kind of think it's funny that he blamed it on analytics, knowing that, if you all remember, when you hired Ron, or when Washington hired Ron, one of his biggest issues was that he didn't listen to the analytics. So now, because you don't get it on the opportunities that you go for it on fourth down, is listening to the analytics. I think that's just Ron deciding to go for it and his team failing to get it. So that was kind of weird to hear. I don't understand the analytic comment. To be honest with you, the Chiefs and the Packers, I don't mind you going for it on fourth down, Ron. You have to execute. The end of the day, or the players have to execute. Let me be specific. But players have to execute. And at the end of the day, when you're playing a team like the Kansas City Chiefs and you're playing a team like the Green Bay Packers, ladies and gentlemen, you are expected to go for it. You have to score at least 24 points to win the game. And with Washington being in scoring range as many times as they did against the Green Bay Packers this week, kind of shows you how fortunate the Packers were that Washington was just that bad. Because Washington should have been in that end zone at least two times, should have had at least 3 field goal opportunities. That's kind of where we are. Okay. So there was a couple of things. I'm going to delete the Chase one. Actually, I'm going to keep that up. Save it for later. All right. And then there was a couple of things more. He said on if he sees week-to-week improvement. Ron said that I love the fight in these guys today. There's no quit. They played hard, and that's all you can ask for as a coach. That your guys come out and play and come out and play hard and give themselves an opportunity. And I thought they did. I thought Taylor Heineke was impressive. He did make a couple of mistakes, but he's going to. He's a young guy gaining experience. I have a lot of confidence that he's going to be able to move us. And now we, as a football team, just have to continue to get better. There was another question tied in to a couple of more things. He said on how he plans to motivate the team the rest of the season. He said, what's in front of us? We still have 10 games to play, obviously, and anything can happen if you take them one at a time. What I'm hoping for and looking for is us to start playing consistent, better football. I get it. I know the expectations were high coming into this year. The truth of the matter is we haven't lived up to those. The thing that we have to do more than anything else is to continue to work hard, continue to prepare, and take it one game at a time, focusing on the one game, and quite honestly, win. I'm going to stop it right there. There was a couple more quotes that I wanted to get over, but I'm going to stop right there, and I'm going to catch up with you all. I'm going to catch up with the comments. So appointment mentioned for this year, mediocre offense with a solid defense. O said that the expectation was to win the division. Everybody picked this, not I. I do remember that you didn't. Appointment also added that this team doesn't have a roster to rebuild. Just needs to be built on with the right coaches and an elite quarterback. Rebuild starts and ends with what I said a couple of weeks ago. We never had the franchise quarterback. It stops and starts there. It seems like a half rebuild with wanting to win now. And there was a couple of more things. I think Ron is talking to Dan Snyder through the media. So here's some things about what is it? So here's some things about the quarterback situation, right? And I'm gonna play this for you all first. I think that'll help. I'll play it for us, and then we can get into the quarterback side of the rebuild, and then we can kind of turn into the expectations and stuff like that. So I'm gonna play this for everybody, and we can kind of go from there. Let's go to right here. Play this.
As of right now, Deshaun Watson is still a member of the Houston Texans, but there is a belief, a good chance, I would say, if that is not the case by the time the November 2nd trade deadline rolls around. I'm told that the Houston Texans have been engaged with multiple teams. I know there was a report last week about the Miami Dolphins. The Dolphins do have some interest. Obviously, there has been some dialogue with the Houston Texans, but they are not alone. Another team to watch, the Carolina Panthers. They have not been shy about making a trade. As GM Scott Fitterer once said, they want to be in every trade. I would expect them to have conversations as well. There may be other teams. The Eagles have been another team that have been rumored to be interested in Deshaun Watson. And of course, there are several other factors. His legal situation is as yet, right now, unresolved. That is another factor to consider. And we should also add, if a team does trade for Deshaun Watson, who is in good shape and ready to play right now, the indications from the NFL is that he would not be placed on the commissioner's exempt list, because that is essentially if you have been charged with a violent crime or a felony. That does not appear right now to apply to Deshaun Watson. So the belief is he would be eligible to play immediately upon trade.
All right. So you all heard it. And when I heard that earlier, I had 3 statements to make following that that quote from Ian Rappaport. So he said one thing, Deshaun Watson can play right away if traded. He says that there are a few teams outside of Miami that are interested, but only stated verbally Carolina and Philadelphia. My question is, who are the teams in the shadows if he says that there are a few teams making a push for D-Watt that Ian can't speak on yet? And that's kind of where we are right now with Washington, ladies and gentlemen. He spoke on the legal things, right? But the truth of the matter is Washington can play. If Washington were to trade for him, he can play right away. Like, it's no secret. It's nothing like that. And obviously you're taking a big risk, or even like if you do your homework, because you don't have to just sit here and like be up in arms. Like, you can have conversations with local law and get an understanding of like what this case may look like from the criminal side of things. But at the end of the day, if he hasn't been charged, you have time to kind of see where you're at with him, especially if he doesn't want to play in Houston. My thing is, and with this conversation, ladies and gentlemen, part of the expectations and part of the rebuild conversation is all about, it is 90% about the quarterback. It is not all about the quarterback. It's 90% about the quarterback. Washington will be heading into year 3 with no answer at the quarterback position. Year 3 of Ron Rivera with no answer at the quarterback position. That is a problem. And we know that they swung and missed on Matt Stafford. They hit on Ryan Fitzpatrick, but eventually struck out when he's missed half the year due to a hip injury, and the season's lost for a variety of reasons, to be honest with you. Washington is in a position where you cannot be casual, especially at a position where everything lies on success and failures. I heard something today, and I'm gonna give JP Finley credit because I was listening to the podcast today. I don't remember how the conversation went about, but he spoke with an executive, a front office executive, I believe, of Washington that's not on the football side of things, and he stated to Finley that the decision to build the roster up just so a quarterback can be plug and play, it's failed. It's backfired. The fact of the matter is, this, at least the business side, who has an opinion, I don't know how much sway he has on the football operations, but the business side sees this team as being or needing to be aggressive in all fronts to try and get themselves a quarterback. Deshaun Watson is providing that opportunity to us. Now, apparently there's a no trade clause, and if I'm wrong, I'll come back at a later date to try and figure that part out. But apparently there may be a no trade clause in which he can kind of dictate where he wants to go. To be honest with you all, there's nothing that's stopping him from choosing Washington. I'm telling you all that right now. I'm not sitting here saying it will happen. I'm not sitting here saying anything like that, but I just want you all to understand, while you're saying Washington, or if you're in the belief that Washington wouldn't go for him, I wouldn't test a desperate guy. And to be honest with you, if Ron Rivera is in a position where he doesn't feel desperate, especially at the quarterback position, I don't know if we have the right guy. If he's not cognizant of how desperate the Washington football team is for a quarterback, because you cannot continue to truck along having band-aids at one of the most important positions. You can't continue to do that. So for a guy who is clearly heating up in the trade talk section in Deshaun Watson, whatever Washington has to do, like, think about it. Houston isn't there. While they may want to get rid of him or may want the most value for him, do you really think that they would want to see him at least once a year or every other year or something like that by trading him to an AFC team in the Miami Dolphins? If they can trade him to the NFC, I was about to say NFC East, but if they can trade him to the NFC, they would love to do that. And that's where Philly comes in. And that's where Carolina comes in. But also, who are the other teams that need quarterbacks? Washington, Detroit, all these other teams. And think about it like this. The only other team that will make sense, I'm not going to lie to you all, in terms of like building blocks, would be the Eagles. Washington has perceivably building blocks, but also they have a good offensive line. Like, Deshaun has a lot to take into account on his side as well. And he could be the face of a franchise for a team that's about to change their name, moving forward with Ron Rivera, things like that. You have that opportunity. So I wouldn't necessarily think, and how is Deshaun Watson going to know about anything else outside of like the investigation, which I'm not minimizing, but I'm just saying, how is Deshaun Watson going to know about anything else from afar when he's in Houston? Not everybody's going to know about every single detail that Washington has going on. So he may take that opportunity and say Washington is a good fit from a player standpoint. And that's kind of where I'm at with Deshaun Watson. But I think that the issue is here, Ron and company has to be cognizant of the situation that they're in right now. You cannot go into 2021 saying, I'm gonna try and make a trade for Aaron Rodgers or Matt Ryan or anybody else because I'm gonna wait and see what Deshaun Watson is going what's going to happen on his legal side. But guess what? Time has passed you by. Somebody else is going to make that move regardless. Is it going to be you or is it going to be somebody else and you're going to say let them take the heat for it? All right, what are you going to do? You going to make that trade and get your quarterback, or you just going to let people sit by and go on without it? But yeah, that's that. And then you have obviously the draft. And that's where things get tricky. I saw something today. Let me see if I can find it. Where is it at? I saw something today about our draft order. Here it goes. So currently right now, Washington is 2-5. They are 8th in the draft order right now because the rest of the NFL sucks that bad. They are 8th, and in front of them are the Giants and the Eagles. So, and the Eagles have 2 first-round picks in the top 5 or top 6 because of Miami trade. So, Washington is they're not in a good position to kind of even get a top tier quarterback, if other people are looking for some. Obviously Detroit's looking for one. Obviously Philly may be looking for one. The Giants may decide to move on from Daniel Jones if they don't have the patience to kind of build around him, especially with that offensive line. Like they may be in those positions. So you kind of got to get into a bigger picture of when you look and exhaust all options for the quarterback position. If you're going to go for Matt Stafford, you have to go for Deshaun Watson. You kind of have to go for Deshaun Watson, man. So that's where I'm at. Where are we at? Huge risk. Absolutely. Jerry mentioned it's a huge risk reward with the Watson trade. We're not in the shadows. We don't care about a quarterback. Oh, look, as casual as these guys are going, that is a concern, a plausible concern. But Jerry did mention that there's no trade cost, and that's kind of what I was talking about. Deshaun Watson can ask about Cam Newton and Aaron. If a team like Philly or Miami takes Watson, thoughts on Tua or Hurts? I'm not a fan of Hurts. I'm not gonna lie to you. I'm rooting for him, but at the same time, I would rather root for him when he's not on my team. I will root for him from afar. But Tua, he's an interesting prospect, man. He's gonna have his struggles, and he's still having his struggles today or to this day. But he has the quarterback tools to be successful, like the pro tools to be successful. I just don't know a full story behind him. I don't have a true narrative. Though I do believe that he has pieces out there to be successful, but that the offense just isn't good. And then on top of that, he continues to get hurt. He's getting injured out here, and that's kind of indicative of what he was going through when he was in Alabama. That hip injury was major, man. And that's that. All right. Caleb Williams, man, I like him. But I don't know if we can really afford to wait that long. But I kind of get what you're saying in the sense, well, correct me if I'm wrong. I kind of get what you're saying in the sense that he is an intriguing prospect, but at the same time, if Ron is going to be so casual about the position, we may be waiting that long to get a quarterback. So that's kind of where we're at right now. Okay, expectations. Let's see if I have. So we spoke on some of that from Jarian and O. Obviously, Appointment mentioned some things too. Here's some things that I'm gonna speak on, and I guess I'll bring up the tweet that kind of prompted everything right quick. Let me exit out of all these tabs. I was gonna do the injury report, but to hell with that. We can talk about that tomorrow. All right, here we go. So the tweet that kind of prompted this whole question, it was a statement. Tay and Ty podcast. I'm not looking at this team as a division champion contending team for another division title playoff berth. I'm looking at them as a team in year 2 of a rebuild after being the second worst team in the NFL 2 years ago. From the surface of that tweet in itself, I would agree. But when you think about everything in its totality, taking everything into into context, I think the bigger conversation lies when you ask, was that the expectation before the season started? When did that transition occur to having that expectation? I don't think anybody is wrong for having expectations of playoffs. There was a lot of people who thought that Washington was going to contend for the division. There is nothing wrong with having those expectations. I think that's kind of where we get down to the bottom line of this whole conversation, is understanding that while you can look at them as a year two in a rebuild, and I think that's an accurate statement. Another accurate statement is we forgot about the rebuild part. We forgot about the rebuild part. Amidst the hype and the buy-in and the build-up of what this team could be. Expectations, or excuse me, rebuild. I keep saying that part. So here we go. I'm gonna list 1, 2, 3. I'm gonna list 4 teams where we talk about people who successfully at least transition through a rebuild, right? I'm gonna list 4 teams, and to be fair, I'm gonna list out 3 teams that unsuccessfully have went through a rebuild. And for those in the chat, if you all have other teams, talk to me. There was some that I left off because they're in the process of it, like they don't have enough time to kind of transition or even have a result. So I left some people off, especially like year 1 teams that's in the process of their rebuilding with their new coach. All right, so here we go. The good Cincinnati Bengals, 3 years into their rebuild, especially with Zach Stacy, they found their quarterback in year 2. They've improved each season from a roster standpoint and from a win and loss standpoint. So let's go ahead and break that down, right? Or quickly. We don't have to, go on every team. Or I said Zach Stacy. That's me thinking of the football, but it's Zach Taylor. Not Zach Stacy, the running back. But yeah, Zach Taylor took over in 2019. They went 2-14. He got his quarterback last year. Joe Burrow gets hurt, but they went 4-11-1. This year, 4-2. Let's go to the next team, the Cardinals. The Cardinals is a team who they're 3 years into their rebuild, found their quarterback year 1, improved each season from a roster standpoint and from a win-loss standpoint. Cardinals right now 7-0. And when Cliff Kingsbury took over, and I'm the person that's probably going to eat the most crow out of this because I thought that he was not. I thought he was not ready or made for the NFL. But he took over. They went 5-10-1 his first year. Second year, 8-8. Third year, 7-0. They're already 1 win away after the first 7 weeks from matching their season total from last year. The Bills, 5 years into the rebuild with Scott McDermott. All right, hold on now. Let me make sure I'm doing this right. Sean McDermott. What is going on with my names right now? 5 years into the rebuild, found their quarterback year 2, improved the roster each year, and now they're winning 60% of their games and has had 3 playoff appearances in the last 4 years. And odds are they probably have another playoff appearance. So 4 appearances out of his 5 years as the head coach, because they're taking over that AFC East now that Brady has moved out of it. Again, another team with a rebuild and a successful one. The Browns, same thing, 4 years into the rebuild, found a quarterback year 1, improved the roster each year. They found a competent, or what they felt was a competent coach in year 3. He produced 11 wins in his first season. Second season is, I think they're 4-3 right now, but you get the point. They have been improving. They have a roster that's really good, and they built around Baker Mayfield, especially with the running game, right? All right. So, yep, Arizona, Buffalo, we talked about that. I wouldn't say the Rams because, well, actually, I take that back. The Rams is a good team too. Thinking back from McVay's first couple of years, that's an excellent point. The Rams too. Got Jared Goff first year. And he's been on the money ever since. Like, I don't think he's missed probably the playoffs 1 time. And he's been there for 5 years now. So yes, the Rams. That's another guy. All right, so look, and here we get to the bad. The Dolphins, 3 years into the rebuild, found the quarterback in year 2, and they've regressed. No playoffs, no playoff appearances. The Giants, 3 years into the rebuild, found their quarterback year 1, found their coach in year 2, regressed / no improvement, no playoffs. Washington, 2 years into the rebuild, used their 2019 quarterback in 2020, labeled a bust. It didn't work out. Still made the playoffs. For obviously the context is what it is. We don't have to repeat that part. Now you enter 2021, quarterback injured. The team regressed / no visible improvement. Same thing as the Giants. Same thing as the Dolphins. 3 examples of 3 bad teams. 4 examples or 5 examples, including the Rams, of good teams who have successfully went through the rebuild. I'm pointing this out to say, while we talk about quarterbacks being some of the problem, this is the reason why I mentioned it was only 90% of the problem. The Giants, they have a quarterback. The Dolphins, they have a quarterback. But why are they still sucking? Why are they still losing? There's a lot more going on over there. There's a lot more going on in Washington. And I don't know if when we talk about the coaches, or we talk about the players and everything else that's going on in Washington, I think the quarterback is going to solve 90% of the problem, but 10% still exist. And this is 10%. Let me catch up with the comments, but the 10% is what I want to talk about next before we get up out of here. I'm not going to hold y'all tonight. You know what I'm saying? We got games to watch. Tampa, I don't know about Tampa, man, because Tampa, all they needed for Tampa was what's his name? Whatchamacallit? That guy who won 7 championships. That guy. So let's get into organization. Mentioned. Buffalo, Arizona, we nailed that. Rams, we nailed that. Baker Mayfield is questionable, but you kind of understand, like, he brought some competency and some stability to the quarterback position, something they was missing for a long time. And then Giants, yes, they have had plenty of injuries, especially amongst that offensive line. And missing on Saquon at this point, like, he's a dog of a running back in my opinion. But if you can't stay healthy and you can't stay on the field, then what does that make you? Tell me, what that make you? All right, so let's get into the 10% that I'm talking about. Ask yourself this question and just keep it a buck. When you think about teams who do things well, or have promising items on their team, like, do they have a side of the ball when you can sit back and say, this is our identity, this is where we'll know we'll show up each and every game? Like, what does Washington do well? And for me, when you look at the offense, nothing. When you look at the defense, nothing. I will give the honorable mention to the offensive line, and this is kind of goes back to the quarterback thing. I feel like the offensive line is the strongest unit, but they need to commit to something. Whether it's from a coordinator standpoint, believing that his offense and his linemen can actually be road graders in the run game, and you can use all 3 of your running backs, because he don't use all 3 of them, and he doesn't use the top 2, J.D. McKissick and Antonio Gibson, enough. You can commit to the run game, or a team who's pass protecting well enough, commit to the passing game. I think when we talk about having to have a balanced offense, I always understand where they're coming from, but at the same time, ladies and gentlemen, you don't have to be balanced. There's teams out there who are their splits in terms of their run pass. Their pass splits are 65% of the offense. You don't have to run the ball and get close to 50-50. You can see kind of where your team is at and understanding your strengths. And that's kind of, I think, again, when we go back to the quarterback, right now, they don't have that. You don't have that ability to kind of commit to a passing offense and a passing attack. And even having the receivers to create the separation enough to kind of win the amount of times that you need them to be successful. So I just feel like in terms of the offense, you don't have a strength yet. You don't have an identity. And you kind of don't know what's going on there yet. And we're 1.5 years in to something that's kind of, when we talk about rebuilds, that's kind of you would have thought you found something. You would have thought you found something. Defense, I say no. But the defense is talented but inconsistent. So you can't be recognized as great or a strength if the unit is not in sync. So if you thought I was disrespecting the defensive line and stuff like that, take that out. I wasn't doing that. I was just saying, while they are talented, if you aren't consistent, that does not make you a good unit. There are defensive lines out there. There are defenses who aren't as talented as Washington, but they play together. They play in sync. They understand their assignments. They understand that I'm not going to make a play, or I'm not going to be the one who makes the play on this one, but I'm going to set my teammate up to be successful because that's my assignment on this run defense or this pass rush. Excuse me. So playing together is something that's not really working out for Washington on the defensive side of the football. You're not great, and you can't be great if your unit is not in sync. Plain and simple. So what do they do? What do they do well on the defense? They don't do anything, or they don't have that thing that you can sit back and say each and every week that they're going to show up. That does not exist. And then special teams, you don't have an elite returner to kind of break the game open. You're just existing. Like, who cares about the kick coverage? I mean, obviously, if it was a huge issue, that'd be one thing. But when you're talking about returning, you don't have an elite returner. You don't have anything on that side of the ball either. So in all three phases, you don't have a strength. And that's kind of where you get back and say, what does Washington do well? They don't do many things well, and they don't have strengths. And that's where you got to get back to the macro thing. What exactly is the plan? What exactly is the plan? And that's what I want to close out on. When we talk about understanding what Ron wants to do, what this organization wants to do, he mentioned in his post-game presser expectations. We did not set those. Well, I guess we did, but it was based on, what was going on in 2020. If the plan is to build the team up, find that quarterback to plug and play, you'll be successful, a la the Los Angeles Rams, who did that with Matt Stafford this year. Again, we talked about it, it failed. But if you want to readdress your approach a year and a half into a rebuild, I don't even know if that's going to be beneficial too, because it's like a reset of sorts. I don't think that'll work out. So you kind of are married to your plan of building up this team, but in which aspect are you going to go on for a quarterback? Do you want to take that risk and draft a quarterback top 10, which is essentially buy you additional time that you may not know you have needed? Or are you going to go all in and trade for a proven quarterback, which eliminates your time or your leash? Because if you end up failing, it points to the coaches again, because the coach has it. Hey, he traded for his quarterback. He made his move. He got that defense. He bought all these guys in. That offensive line is looking good. The receiver, Terry McLaurin, he's having a Pro Bowl year. Jonathan Allen, Pro Bowl year. All these guys are having Pro Bowl years, or I'm not even going to slice it. Those guys, some key guys are having Pro Bowl years, but the team is still losing. And you got your quarterback. So it all depends on what route you want to do. And I'm just concerned that time is not running out on Ron. Like, from a head coaching standpoint and having his job, time is not running out. I want to make that known. But I am concerned that his time on finding a quarterback is running out. If you miss in year 3, miss meaning you don't acquire a top talent, whether it's free agency or draft or through trade. That's what I'm talking about. If you miss in that category and you have to do a makeshift or put another Band-Aid on a position, you're going into year 3 as a team who's not really ready to compete yet. Again, you don't know which direction you're headed just yet, because you have not solved that position. The defense, who was once perceived as a top unit in the NFL, has regressed. And that offense does not have the pieces around the quarterback to kind of, make them stand out. Those are the concerns that I have right now. I don't know if you all feel the same way, but it's hard, man. And I understand where people kind of tap out, throughout the season. I know people personally who've tapped out. They don't want nothing to do with the team, or they do. They'll watch, but they're indifferent. They don't have emotions in the game. They're just there because they're there. They don't know what else to do. Or some people who've actually found things to do outside of the games. I'm not at that point, man. And I don't think I'll ever be at that point because I love the sport itself. But then obviously Washington is, it is what it is. But understanding that part, you have to understand. Like, I think the coaches in the organization needs to be or understand that whatever plan that they did have isn't really working out. They need to make swift adjustments if they want to stick to the plan, or scrap it all together and just dive in. Like, whatever that new plan is, if you're going to retool, to rebuild or whatever, like, dive in and commit. But it's just something that kind of gets to me, man. And I'm not necessarily sure that Ron Rivera, or excuse me, I think I'm pretty sure that Ron Rivera is understanding of something that isn't working on his end from a coaching standpoint, because the messaging has completely shifted over the past couple of weeks. He went from a guy who was very defensive and aggressive at times to the media, and I'm not trying to sound like a scared old person who's threatened by that. I found it amusing. I found it amusing that he was defensive and aggressive in some instances, but just saying, a person who was clearly frustrated. I think that's the safest way to put it. A person who was clearly frustrated with the media and frustrated with the amount of negative comments headed towards his way and questions heading toward his way. A guy who just completely, like, his team has let him down 3 weeks in a row, and he has no more answers. Like, the only thing you can transition to now is talking about how well your team played in the midst of a loss. And you've done that for 2 weeks in a row now. When are we going to start expecting teams to do it? Expecting this Washington football team to really win? That's kind of where I'm at, man. We need to stop going in there talking about how much are we going to lose by? Are we going to compete? We need to talk about or get to the point where this team is saying, you know what, I think we can actually beat these guys, and here's how we're going to do it. Because I believe in this coach. Because I believe that this guy's going to have a big game. He has the opportunity to succeed. And I think that I can trust this defense enough to kind of hold the ship. I think there's a good opportunity against the Denver Broncos coming up. And we'll talk about the Denver Broncos more as this week moves along. But yeah, that's kind of where I'm at, man. They need to identify their plan or re-identify their plan and attack. Attack, man. Because you've lost, the Washington football team has lost the fan base yet again. Majority of the fan base. O was in the chat. O mentioned, he tuned out. He called them my team. That man called them my team. So we just need to be cognizant of that, man. And I hope the coaches are. I hope the coaches are, because people like O, it's 1,000 of them, and I don't blame them. What has the team done to kind of give them something to stick around for? Constant embarrassment. Come on the field. I'm not even bringing off the field drama into this. Constant embarrassment, man. Over promising or stuff like that, and just coming up short. So with that being said, ladies and gentlemen, appreciate y'all watching. However y'all watching, appreciate y'all listening. All that good stuff. So I will be back tomorrow. I'm thinking I'm gonna do a film breakdown. I want to see what Antonio Gibson looked like for real. I think I'm gonna do a film breakdown tomorrow. And then back Wednesday with the All 32, and then preview for the Denver Broncos on Thursday. So with that being said, I'm up out of here. Y'all enjoy that Monday night football game. I got the Saints +4. I got the Seahawks +4.5. And the under at 42.5. So we'll see how that goes. I'm gonna enjoy the game for sure. But y'all be safe. Enjoy y'all evening. All that good stuff. And I'll see y'all tomorrow. Peace.
Whole hard in the trenches. Ask a nigga what he benching. Triple digits, nigga. Don't forget to mention. Whole hard in the trenches.